I never expected a simple conversation in the break room to change the entire direction of my life. Looking back, I can trace everything to that morning when the scent of stale coffee and microwaved oatmeal clung to the air, and our office felt unusually bright for early spring. The fluorescent lights flickered, a faint hum vibrating through the ceiling tiles, and I stood waiting for my mug to fill from the slow, wheezing machine that always seemed on its last breath. That was when Megan appeared, my co-worker, project partner, and occasional rival. She had that same half-bemused expression she wore whenever she was about to propose something absurd. Her dark hair was curled more intricately than usual that day, bouncing slightly as she leaned against the counter. "So," she said, drumming her nails on a styrofoam cup, "remember when we joked about doing that themed outfit contest for the product launch?" I nodded, cautious. It had been a silly idea tossed out during a late meeting, half delirious from overwork. "Well," she continued, "I think we should actually do it. A challenge. You and me. Wearing whatever theme the marketing team pulls from a hat." I raised an eyebrow. "Are you serious? You realize half the office thought that idea was a joke?" Her grin widened, bold enough to wipe away any doubt. "That's why it'll be fun. Come on, we need some spark around here. It's been spreadsheets and caffeine for months." A few other co-workers drifted in, catching hints of our conversation. Before I could refuse, the marketing intern, Avery, perked up. "Oh, I love this. Should I make a list? Themes, costumes, the whole thing." I tried to object. Really, I did, but momentum had already formed. And maybe part of me liked it. I'd been feeling dull lately, like my life was a grey storm cloud of routine, bills, and quiet evenings. Within an hour, HR gave their cautious approval, as long as participation stayed voluntary, safe, and workplace appropriate. Avery scribbled themes onto tiny slips of paper: fantasy, retro glam, superhero, vintage ballroom, modern royalty, and a few others. No one warned me that the office gossip mill would spin so quickly. Suddenly people were leaning over cubicles, whispering about what I might have to wear, speculating how far I'd go to win. It felt like a harmless dare, something that would fade into laughter a year later. I thought it would be simple. Friday afternoon, everyone gathered in the open space near the conference room. Megan looked confident, bordering on smug, as Avery shook a small glass bowl filled with the paper slips. The office buzzed with anticipation. I tried to act relaxed, though my stomach had twisted into knots. Avery pulled one slip from the bowl, unfolded it dramatically, and read aloud. "Modern royalty, interpreted however you want." There were cheers and murmurs. Some joked about crowns and velvet capes. I felt relieved. This didn't sound too bad. Then Megan crossed her arms, sizing me up. "Let's make it interesting," she said. "A twist. We both have to reinterpret royalty through a different gender lens. You dress as a modern queen. I dress as a modern king. Fair." The room went silent. A few people laughed, thinking she was kidding. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. But she didn't budge. She simply watched me, that mischievous glimmer resting behind her eyes. "It's just clothes," she added quietly. "And you always talk about stepping outside your comfort zone. We can make it classy. No weirdness. Just creativity." I swallowed. The idea seemed bold, but not threatening. Everyone watched me, though no one pressured. I knew I could walk away and no one would fault me. Yet, something in me flickered, a strange mix of fear and curiosity. Maybe this was exactly the disruption I needed. "Fine," I said. "You're on." The room erupted into applause, some playful, some genuinely impressed. Megan tapped my shoulder, half encouraging, half teasing. Over the next few days, planning consumed the office. People came by with accessory ideas, color palettes, and Pinterest boards. Even my manager swung by with a mock-serious suggestion about pearls matching our brand colors. But as the days passed, something unsettling crept in. The more I thought about dressing as a queen, the more real it became. It wasn't just fun anymore. It felt personal, like there was something hidden beneath it all that I didn't yet understand. One evening, Megan and I stayed late to outline presentation details for the product launch. The building was quiet. She sat across the table from me, tapping her pen. "You okay?" she asked. I hesitated. "Yeah, just thinking about the outfit." "You don't have to do anything that makes you uncomfortable," she reminded. "We can change the rules. The whole point is to have fun." But some strange stubbornness rose in me. No. I want to do this. I just want to get it right. Her expression softened. It was the first time I felt she truly saw me, not as a colleague or challenger, but as someone wrestling with something deeper. You will, she said quietly. And somehow, I believed her. I didn't know then that this challenge would unravel assumptions I'd built my entire life upon. I didn't know it would crack open parts of me I had never dared to look at. All I knew was, there was no turning back. The weekend arrived faster than I expected, and with it came a sense of quiet dread mixed with an inexplicable excitement. I spent Saturday morning wandering through the downtown shopping district, weaving past boutiques and department stores, pretending I knew what I was looking for. Every storefront mirrored my anxious reflection, someone trying to make sense of a situation that seemed playful on the surface but tugged at something deeper inside. I kept hearing Megan's voice in my head, "We can make it classy, just creativity." I must have walked past the same window display 3 times before I finally stepped inside the small boutique with rose-colored wallpaper and soft music drifting from unseen speakers. Flowing dresses hung on gold racks like carefully preserved memories, illuminated by gentle light that gave everything a dreamlike glow. A salesperson greeted me warmly. Her eyes darted to my expression, equal parts overwhelmed and determined, and she seemed to understand without needing details. "Looking for something special?" she asked. I hesitated. "A themed outfit. Modern royalty." Her smile brightened. "That's very open. Do you have a direction?" I swallowed the second half of the sentence forming in my mind. I'm dressing as a queen. I wasn't embarrassed. Not exactly. But I felt strangely vulnerable, as though speaking it aloud made it real in a new way. After a beat, I said, "Feminine. Elegant. Something that feels confident." Even saying that felt like a confession. She nodded, leading me through the racks. As she pulled dresses, emerald green satin, soft blush chiffon, deep navy lace, something inside me shifted, like I was stepping through a door I'd never considered before. In the fitting room, I stared at the mirror for a long time. My face looked tense, but curious. Piece by piece, I tried on the dresses. Each time, I felt another layer of resistance flake away. There was a sensation I hadn't expected. Not humiliation, not even awkwardness, but a strange relief, like acknowledging something I had never let myself name. Eventually, I settled on a sleek royal blue dress with a structured bodice and sleeves embroidered with subtle silver thread. It wasn't flashy. It was dignified. And somehow, it felt right. I brought it to the counter, hands trembling slightly. The salesperson folded it with care. "You're going to look incredible," she said. I exhaled, unsure why her reassurance meant so much. The next step was accessories. A thin silver circlet, understated earrings, comfortable low heels. It was all coming together faster than I could process. I texted Megan a picture of a dress laid out on my bed. For a moment I thought I might regret sending it, but before overthinking could take over, her reply came. "Absolutely perfect. You're going to own the room." My chest tightened unexpectedly. Sunday night, I practiced walking in the heels, pacing between my kitchen and living room, wobbling at first until I learned how to move differently, more deliberate, more balanced. It felt like learning a new language with my body. I thought about backing out more than once. What would people think? Maybe this was too much. Maybe I was reading too deeply into something meant as just an office contest. But every time doubt surfaced, something deeper whispered, "Keep going." Monday arrived. The day of the presentation. I walked into the office clutching a garment bag, adrenaline pulsing through my veins. The atmosphere buzzed quietly, like everyone knew today meant more than just another meeting. Megan met me at my desk, carrying her own outfit bag. She wore slacks, a crisp shirt, her hair pulled back confidently. The beginnings of her modern king interpretation. "You okay?" she asked. "Somewhere between terrified and fine," I answered. She laughed softly. "Honestly? Same." Before lunchtime, we found a spare conference room to get ready. The air smelled faintly of dry erase markers and leftover coffee. I unpacked my dress, hands shaking slightly as I slipped into it. The smooth fabric hugged my torso, grounding me. I caught sight of myself in the mirror, awkward but composed. Then came makeup. I wasn't sure what I was doing, so Megan guided me, her instructions calm and patient. Just a touch of foundation, a hint of highlight, natural tones. When she stepped back, I'd barely recognized myself, not because I looked dramatically different, but because I looked like someone comfortable in a way I didn't expect. "You look incredible," she said. I suddenly felt like the air was too thin. She changed into her outfit, tailored, regal, sleek. Together, we looked like two pieces of a story neither of us had fully read. As we prepared to step out into the hallway, I paused, heart racing. "What if people laugh?" I asked quietly. "Then they laugh," she said. "And then they'll stop. But most won't. They'll see how much courage this took." I nodded, though part of me still trembled. The door opened. We stepped into the hallway. Conversations hushed around us. Heads turned. Some mouths fell open. Others smiled, genuinely. I expected to feel exposed, but instead, I felt seen. One coworker, Jordan, approached wide-eyed. "You look amazing," he said. There was no mockery, just honest admiration. "Seriously. That's wow." Compliments trickled in. Some enthusiastic, some shy. Every word wrapped around me like a strange new armor. We walked to the presentation area, where rows of chairs faced a projection screen. People sat, murmuring about the outfits. My pulse hammered as I stepped to the front. The fabric along my arms whispered with every movement. My heels clicked in a steady rhythm. Megan stood beside me, tall and steady. "Ready," she whispered. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if it was true. As the presentation began, my voice trembled slightly, but the more I spoke, the more I felt grounded. The room wasn't laughing. No one looked uncomfortable. If anything, they were inspired. I caught glimpses of faces, curious, impressed, supportive. The fear that had clung to me all weekend cracked open, replaced by something I hadn't expected, a quiet, shimmering joy. Not because I looked the part, but because I felt it. And deep inside, something shifted, subtle, powerful, and irreversible. The applause faded into a warm hum that wrapped around me long after the presentation ended. I stood near the projector table, hands clasped gently, letting the moment sink in. The room felt different now, brighter, more open, like everyone had collectively stepped into unfamiliar territory and discovered it wasn't frightening at all. Co-workers gathered in clusters, chatting about the event. Some commented on the product launch, others on the outfits. No one treated me like a spectacle. Their compliments remained steady, genuine. Each one chipped away another small piece of the old version of myself, revealing something quieter, steadier, and strangely authentic beneath. I returned to my desk still wearing the dress, out of convenience at first, but then out of choice as the fabric settled comfortably around me. I caught glimpses of coworkers smiling as they walked by. A few asked thoughtful questions. How did the outfit feel? Was it difficult to find? Did I enjoy the process? None of it felt mocking. Everything felt curious, supportive. That surprised me most. Late afternoon approached, and the office began unwinding into its usual end-of-day rhythm. Emails slowed, lights dimmed, voices softened. But inside me, something continued buzzing, like electricity beneath skin. Megan appeared beside my desk and leaned gently on the cubicle wall. She looked relaxed, her tailored outfit still sharp, though her expression carried a hint of quiet pride. "You handled all of that beautifully," she said. I laughed, though it came out nervous. I thought I was going to pass out. "You didn't," she replied. "You stood there and owned it." For a moment, neither of us spoke. There was a peaceful tension, the good kind, the kind that signals something important is brewing. "You seemed comfortable," she finally said, choosing her words carefully. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. More than I expected. She nodded like she already knew. "There's nothing wrong with that. People express themselves in different ways. Clothes are just tools." I looked at my reflection in the dark computer monitor. The silver embroidery along my sleeves caught the faint office lights. It didn't feel like a costume. It felt like a layer of myself I'd never allowed to surface. "Do you think it's strange?" I asked. "No," she said simply. "I think it's honest." That word hit deeper than I anticipated. Honest. We packed up our things but stayed in the office lounge a bit longer, not ready to let the day slip into memory. The sun hung low outside, tinting the windows with gold. The quiet room felt suspended, like time wanted to linger with us. I sat on the edge of the couch, smoothing the skirt over my knees. My posture came more naturally now, not stiff, not tentative. Just present. My brother used to dress up for theater, Megan said, as though trying to tell me something without stating it outright. He said it taught him parts of himself he didn't know how to access before. I nodded slowly. Maybe that's what this is. She tilted her head. And how do you feel? Really? I didn't answer right away. I searched inside myself, where thoughts tangled. I feel lighter, like I've been holding something I didn't know I was holding. Her eyes softened. That makes sense, she said. The conversation drifted for a while, gentle, curious, unhurried. There were no demands, no assumptions. Just space, real space, where I could breathe and reflect. Eventually, I changed back into my regular clothes, folding the dress carefully into the garment bag. Even that felt strange, like tucking away a part of myself that had only just learned to speak. As I rode the elevator down, garment bag in hand, I found myself missing the feel of the dress already, the quiet confidence it sparked. I thought about the fitting room, the compliments, the sense of alignment I'd felt at the front of the room. I wondered if that feeling would fade once the novelty wore off. Outside, the city lights flickered awake. I walked to the train station, my steps unhurried. I watched my reflection in shop windows, searching for signs of the person I had been that same morning. Everything looked familiar, yet something under the surface had changed irrevocably. When I got home, I hung the dress where I could see it instead of tucking it away. It felt like a reminder, not of a joke or a dare, but of something awakening. I traced the silver patterns with my fingers and felt a strange warmth settle in my chest. That night, lying in bed, I replayed the day 100 times. The quiet admiration of my coworkers, Megan's gentle guidance, the unexpected comfort in clothing I once thought belonged to someone else. As I drifted toward sleep, one thought surfaced clearly. This wasn't just a contest. Even if I didn't yet understand what it meant, I knew it marked the beginning of something I needed to follow. I closed my eyes and let that truth settle deep inside. The next morning, I woke with a feeling I couldn't immediately name. It wasn't dread, or excitement, or even confusion. It was something quieter, like a faint pull in a direction I had never walked before. I lay still for a moment, staring at the ceiling as early sunlight slipped between the blinds and painted soft stripes across my room. The dress hung on the closet door, catching fragments of that light. Seeing it there, silent, patient, made my chest tighten. It no longer felt like a costume. It felt like a question waiting for an answer I wasn't sure how to give. Work buzzed with leftover energy from the presentation. People still murmured about the contest, but now the tone was different. There was less surprise and more curiosity, even respect. Someone left a small card on my desk that read, "You inspired us. Thank you for your courage." There was no signature. I tucked it carefully into my drawer. Around noon, Megan swung by. She leaned on my cubicle wall, just like she had the day before, but her expression carried a new weight, as if she could sense something stirring inside me. "Lunch?" she asked. We walked to a quiet cafe a few blocks away. It was dimly lit, peaceful, with soft music humming under the conversation of a few customers. Once we ordered, she didn't ease into anything. She never had patience for small talk when the air felt charged. "You've been quiet today," she said gently. "I'm just thinking," I replied, tracing the rim of my mug. "About yesterday?" I nodded, uncertain how much I could say without unraveling. But the truth pressed against my ribs. "I thought it would be a joke," I said. "I thought I'd do it, laugh about it, and go back to normal." "And now?" she asked. I exhaled slowly. "Now it doesn't feel like something I can just put away." Her eyes didn't widen. She didn't look shocked or concerned. She just listened, truly listened, in a way that told me I wasn't being judged. "That makes sense," she said. "It's okay to feel curious. It's okay to explore what feels right." She said it so simply, yet it felt like a lifeline. We talked for a long time, not about labels or conclusions, but about the strange, quiet revelation of recognizing a part of yourself that had always been there, dormant. She told me about her brother again, how he had spent years discovering different aspects of himself, never rushing to define who he was until the pieces formed a shape that made sense. "It's not about deciding everything right now," she said. "It's just about listening." On our way back to the office, the city looked unchanged, same sidewalks, same glass towers, but I felt different in my body, like I occupied space with a new awareness. That afternoon, a message from HR popped up in my inbox. My heart jumped, But as I read, relief washed over me. They thanked me for participating in the event and acknowledged the positive reactions. They also reminded me that employees could express themselves comfortably as long as attire remained workplace appropriate. The message ended with a note inviting anyone exploring personal expression to schedule a confidential conversation if needed. I stared at the screen for a long time. It felt both surreal and grounding. When I got home that evening, I set my bag down and looked again at the dress hanging in my room. I wasn't planning to wear it, but I felt compelled to hold it, just to feel the weight of it in my hands. The fabric felt smooth and cool, steady. Before I fully registered my actions, I found myself slipping into it again. The zipper moved easily. I stood in front of the mirror, barefoot, hair unstyled, no makeup to soften my features. And still, something about it fit, not just physically, but emotionally. I didn't twirl or pose. I just stood there, breathing slowly. I felt calm, more than I had in weeks. It was like stepping into a space my heart recognized before my mind did. I walked through my apartment, into the kitchen, then the living room, quietly testing how it felt to exist like this, without witnesses or purpose. The fabric brushed lightly against my legs, comforting and familiar. I wasn't performing. I was simply being. Later, I changed into pajamas, then folded the dress neatly, placing it back on its hanger. I didn't hide it. I left it out where I could see it, as if tucking it away would be denying everything I'd just felt. That night, I stared at the ceiling again, replaying the sensation of moving through my home in the dress, the ease that had settled in my limbs, the subtle joy warming my chest. The next day, something shifted. I woke earlier, feeling clear, still confused, still unsure where this was leading, but clearer than before. I didn't wear the dress to work. But I chose a softer shirt, one I'd avoided wearing because I once thought it looked too delicate. I noticed how the fabric draped differently, how it made me move with more intention. At work, Megan glanced up when she saw me, her eyes narrowing playfully. "You look comfortable," she said. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a question. It was an observation. And I realized she was right. People didn't stare. They didn't whisper. They just greeted me like they always did. I answered emails, attended meetings, refilled my coffee, and every so often, I'd catch a faint echo of the feeling from yesterday, that subtle sense of alignment. After work, Megan and I walked out together. The air smelled faintly of rain, though the sky remained clear. She paused near the building entrance, looking at me thoughtfully. "You're different," she said. Not in a dramatic way, just more present. I didn't know how to respond, so I just nodded. "I think you're figuring something out," she continued. "And I think that's good." I exhaled, letting her words settle. "I don't know where this is going," I admitted. "You don't have to," she said. "Just keep listening." Her voice was steady, grounded. The reassurance made something inside me unclench, a tension I hadn't even realized I was carrying. We said goodnight, and I walked home under the slowly darkening sky. Everything felt strangely gentle, like the world was giving me permission to take my time. That night, when I passed the dress hanging in my room, I didn't flinch or hesitate. I simply looked at it and felt calm. It didn't demand answers. It didn't push me. It just waited. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't afraid. The following week, work returned to its normal rhythm, though something had shifted beneath the surface. The themed outfit contest had ended, but the ripple effects lingered. I noticed little things, co-workers offering subtle encouragements, Megan's quiet glances of support, a softening of the way I carried myself. I realized that confidence wasn't something you could force. It grew in the spaces you allowed yourself to occupy, and I had found a new space I hadn't known existed. It wasn't just about the dress anymore. It was about movement, posture, voice, and presence. Even in regular clothes, I felt lighter, more intentional. I noticed how the fabric of my shirts now mattered, how small choices in my appearance changed my mood, how gestures I had dismissed suddenly felt expressive. I didn't label it yet. I didn't need to. I simply felt more like me. One afternoon, Megan stopped by my desk with an idea. "There's another office event coming up," she said, twirling a pen. "This time it's casual, nothing mandatory. But maybe we could expand on the concept. Less performance, more creative expression. I think people really responded to yesterday." I hesitated. My first instinct was to say no. I didn't want to be spotlighted again. But then I remembered the strange thrill of trying something new, the quiet joy that had followed. "Okay," I said slowly. "I'm in." Megan smiled. It wasn't triumphant or teasing. It was gentle, understanding. "We'll figure it out together." No pressure, just discovery. Over the next few days, we brainstormed themes and approaches. This time, I felt less anxious and more curious. I scrolled through ideas, tried sketches, and considered fabrics and colors. Each option felt like an invitation rather than a test. Megan guided me, but never pushed. She encouraged me to explore how I felt moving in different styles, how clothing could amplify confidence rather than mask fear. On the day of the next event, I dressed in a soft, flowing tunic with subtle embellishments, paired with tailored pants. I experimented with makeup that accentuated my natural features without feeling dramatic. When I walked into the office, the energy was different, less tense, more collaborative. My coworkers were smiling, chatting, relaxed. No one gawked. No one whispered in judgment. I realized then that the magic wasn't in the outfit itself. It was in the courage to express myself fully, without apology. Every step I took across the floor carried a weight I hadn't noticed before, the weight of self-acceptance, the lightness of authenticity. Megan joined me, clad in an outfit that subtly flipped expectations, a mix of traditionally soft fabrics and strong tailoring. We moved through the office together, sharing quiet jokes and smiles. For the first time, I felt as if we were partners exploring something entirely new, rather than participants in a spectacle. A few co-workers approached, complimenting us, asking gentle questions about our choices. There was no mockery, no curiosity rooted in judgment, just genuine interest. I realized that, in sharing this side of myself, I had created a bridge to others. A space where people could express and explore without fear. Later, during a quiet lull, Megan and I lingered near the windows, sunlight painting warm patterns on the floor. "You're different," she said again, softly, almost reverently. "Not in who you are, but in how you let yourself exist." I laughed lightly, shaking my head. "I don't know if it's different. I just notice things more." "That's part of it," she replied. "Being aware is half the journey." I reflected on the past week. The contest, the presentations, the quiet moments of reflection, it had all been more than fun or challenge. It had been discovery. And though I didn't yet know where it would lead, I understood the path wasn't about answers. It was about exploration, presence, and authenticity. As the day wound down, I lingered a moment longer in front of the mirror in the empty lounge. The reflection staring back wasn't the person I had been at the start of the contest. There was a softness, a steadiness, a subtle pride in the way I held myself. It wasn't flamboyant or performative. It was simply real. I smiled quietly, almost to myself. Even if no one else fully understood what this journey meant, I did. And that knowledge was enough. That evening, walking home, the city lights glimmered across the wet pavement. I kept my pace slow, savoring the rhythm of my own steps. I imagined the dress waiting for me at home, patient, silent, a reminder of how far I'd come. But I no longer felt tethered to it. I realized the transformation had already taken place, not in clothes, not in appearance, but in awareness, presence, and self-acceptance. And in that moment, I finally understood the subtle power of choice, the quiet, sometimes invisible act of allowing yourself to exist fully, without apology, without fear, and with curiosity. The following weeks settled into a rhythm that felt almost ordinary, but the ordinary itself had changed. I moved through the office with a new sense of ease, a subtle awareness of how I occupied space. I noticed the sway of a colleague's scarf, the tilt of a chair as someone leaned into conversation, the quiet nods that said more than words could convey. Everything felt sharper, more alive, because I had stepped into a version of myself I hadn't known I possessed. Megan and I continued to experiment quietly, no contests, no deadlines, just moments of shared exploration. Sometimes it was color, sometimes fabrics, sometimes movement. She never imposed her ideas, but her presence was steady, supportive, and always encouraging. It wasn't about competition or approval anymore. It was about discovering how it felt to be fully expressed in small, intentional ways. One day, I caught myself in the reflection of the elevator doors. I paused, studying my posture, the subtle tilt of my shoulders, the calm in my eyes. I thought back to the first moment I tried on the royal blue dress. I remembered the trepidation, the awkwardness, the tiny tremors in my hands. And I realized how far I had come, not because I had changed who I was, but because I had chosen to listen to myself, to step into experiences that terrified and intrigued me all at once. It wasn't just about clothing. It was about courage, authenticity, and acceptance. It was about letting the world see a piece of you that had been quiet for too long. And in allowing that, something extraordinary happened. I felt more connected, not just to myself, but to everyone around me. Megan appeared beside me in the lobby, carrying a small bundle of sketch papers. "You're thinking again," she said, teasing but gentle. "Always," I replied. She glanced at my reflection and smiled. "You look at peace." I blinked, considering her words. Peace. It wasn't something I had felt often in the past year. But in that moment, it settled around me like a soft, warm blanket. We spent the ride home talking about minor things, the office, a shared joke, plans for a weekend hike, but underneath it all was a quiet understanding. There were no labels, no pressure, just a recognition of the journey we had started together. That evening, I hung the royal blue dress back on its hook. It looked the same as it always had, yet everything had changed. I didn't need to wear it to feel the transformation. I didn't need validation, applause, or acknowledgement. The shift had already taken place, quietly and irrevocably, in the subtle alignment between who I was, who I wanted to explore, and the space I allowed myself to occupy. I walked through my apartment, reflecting on the weeks past. The initial fear, the suspense, the awkward laughter, the supportive smiles, the quiet moments of insight. Each memory felt like a step, each moment a building block of something I hadn't known I was constructing, a foundation of self-trust, curiosity, and authenticity. Finally, I stood before the mirror, alone. I didn't pose, I didn't adjust, I simply breathed and observed. The reflection looking back was familiar and strange all at once. It was me, but more present, more aware, more complete. I realized then that the contest, the costumes, the suspense, and the playful dares had been just the beginning. They had unlocked something I had ignored for too long, a reminder that exploration and courage didn't need grand gestures. They began in small, intentional acts, in moments of curiosity, in listening to the quiet voice that had been asking to be acknowledged all along. And as I stepped away from the mirror, the dress hanging silently behind me, I knew one thing with absolute clarity: I was ready for whatever came next. Not because I had all the answers, not because I knew the future, but because I had discovered the simple power of allowing myself to exist fully, authentically, and without apology. And that, more than anything else, felt like true transformation.